We're live. We have just watched the League of Gentlemen are behind you. They're Panto/Nativity. Oh,
Of all screenshots, you had to land on that one.
oh, that's unfortunate. Anyway, I'll try to be very careful going that way. No, it looks like we're not going to get the title card up. Anyway, so, guys, do you want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I'm Headphones UK, aka George, and you should know who I am by now. I've been doing pretty much all of these.
Okay, hi, I'm Anya. My username on Twitter is very creative. It is the League of Vaisy, and I just really like the League of Gentlemen.
And you are probably the best Pauline cosplayer in the business.
Oh, thank you very much.
Not that it is a business, but
well,
I'm sure you're certainly the best one.
Well, thanks. Yeah, and I cosplay Pauline sometimes at Comic-Con as well. So yeah.
Yeah, your costume's really brilliant.
Thank you.
Even though we will never agree on.
No, we won't agree.
Yeah, we will never agree on the whole Ross versus Pauline debate.
No. He's a good character, I just don't like him, but that's because I am completely biased and I can admit that, so it's fine.
Yeah. Anyway, so Anya, you'd seen the Panto before, right?
Yes, yeah, many times, yeah. It's my favourite of the live shows, so yeah.
Yeah, it's mine as well. I mean, it certainly helps that it's completely original material, which I think you have to remind yourself that when they did the live shows, they weren't expecting everyone to have like binge watched League of Gentlemen like 2 days before. So it makes sense that they did do stuff they'd already done on TV, and even though they did cut some of the sketches that were too similar from the DVD version, but yeah, I think the fact that it's all original material definitely helps. But yeah, it is definitely my favorite of the live shows. And George, despite being a League fan, you'd never seen it before, had you?
No, I had no way of watching it because I think I originally watched League of Gentlemen on BBC iPlayer, and of course the live shows aren't on there, so I didn't get a chance to see them.
Yeah, I don't think they were filmed by the BBC. I think that was done independently. So
probably yes.
Yeah. And oh, Alicia Alvarado, hello, lovely to see you. Someone called Russell Trench says salutations to the Netherlands, or salutations to you as well, Russell. I don't think you've been here before. Thank you. Brian says he was going to be here. I don't know if he will be by now. So yes, hello to everyone who's here. Let me see. So, can I go through the Denton song without coming across that screenshot again?
Yeah, so those who have just joined, we were skipping through to get a good screenshot, and we happened to land exactly on the shot that's a really tight close-up of the Denton's massive fake penis.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll be laughing about that for the rest of the stream.
The very weirdly detailed, slightly realistic-looking fake penis.
Yes. Anyway, so the Denton song is pretty much the only reused sketch. I think it's the only reused sketch, apart from the Tavalouris doing the medium bit. So yeah, what did you guys think of this version of the song?
It's been a while since I've watched that episode, so I couldn't quite tell what was different. The only thing that I noticed that was different, which I pointed out, is that for the vaginal douche part, instead of it being a vaginal douche, it was a big super soaker.
Yeah, I mean I think that is the only thing that's different, but yeah, I mean it's just
also
as good as it.
Also the fact that Ross is actually kind of taking part in this as well.
You mean Benjamin?
Benjamin, sorry, I always get him mixed up. Yeah, Benjamin seems to be actually taking part with this one instead of being kind of led around in a very confused haze.
Yeah. Well, and the twins are puppets in this one as well, so
Yes.
obviously.
Yeah. I think Rishi Smith said in an interview or something that he still has those puppets.
Oh, really? That's amazing.
Yeah. Or at least I think it would have been the DVD commentary for this that he said that. So maybe he doesn't still have them, but I imagine he wouldn't have thrown them away. Yeah, I think it was a good idea to start on the song.
Typically, that's how a lot of stage shows open anyway, is that they start up on a song.
And there's this I think they said in the commentary there is actually an added verse in the Denton song in this.
Okay.
And obviously it has a different ending.
Well, yeah.
They take their clothes off. Anyway, let's move on to talking about the next sketch. Hopefully avoiding.
There you go.
Yes, yeah. Ollie! A slightly blurry Ollie.
As I said, with his jumper and his wig, he looks like a shaven Rolf Harris.
Yeah, that's not something I think anyone would want to be compared to, but yeah.
To be fair, with him, it feels somewhat poignant because he feels kind of like someone who would get up to the kind of stuff Rolf Harris did.
No, not Ollie. Ollie isn't that terrible.
He's just got a bad temper, that's all.
To be fair, yes. I've worked with a lot of arsehole directors when I used to work in the theatre, so.
Well, anyway, so yeah, what do you guys think of the framing device of the nativity? I think it's a really brilliant idea because it's pretty much mentioned at some point in every sketch, but not every sketch is directly related to it. So
yeah, the sketch with what was the name of the guy who's in the Indian restaurant? Geoff, that's it. Yeah, that sketch definitely felt very unrelated. I mean, he mentions that he was coming off of an audition for this particular pantomime, but other than that, yeah, it didn't really have anything to do with it. And the one with the weird doctor who does everything through old playground nursery rhymes and games.
I think that might be the only sketch that doesn't actually mention the COMMUNATIVITY.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to mention it at all.
Yeah, I think the rest all at least mention it in passing. Like Herr Lipp mentions it.
Yes, he does.
So let's see if I can get another a wide shot of Ollie here. Rishi Smith says that the reason he looks so chubby in the scene is because he's wearing all the costumes for Act 1 underneath that jumper.
Fucking hell, he must have been sweating like hell.
Yeah.
Also, now that I changed my mind, he doesn't look like a shaven Rolf Harris. He looks more like Jeffrey from Rainbow.
That's a better comparison, so yes. We'll go with that one.
Yeah. But yeah, and I think it's good that they do like one sort of. I know framing device isn't the right word, but I
think it is.
I mean, it kind of is for the second half at least.
It definitely is for the second half. The first half feels more like a series of somewhat related but mostly unrelated sketches that are loosely tied together. The first one, while it's a very loose narrative, it does have a narrative. Yeah,
I think So the premise, let's say, I think that it's good that they did like one premise for one act and another premise for the another act.
Yeah,
because it's because I think they'd run out of ideas, or it might wear thin if they did it for the whole show.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it works really well, and it's sort of and there's also two different types of nostalgia. It's nostalgia for school nativity plays, and it's nostalgia for panto as well. So I think it works really well.
It does, very much so. And it's sort of well, we'll get to some of the really good bits when we get to it, but it did make me realise when watching this, at least for the League of Gentlemen, Psychoville and Inside Number 9, you can definitely see their sense of humour maturing. But with this, they have an incredibly lowbrow, childish sense of humour, but somehow, and it's like normally if I saw this kind of humour performed by somebody who was being like way too into it or just didn't feel like they had any kind of irony to them, I wouldn't find it funny. The way they perform it, it just makes it hilarious.
Yes, and I think I said it last time. I think it's the same with their dark humor.
Yes.
It's normally not something I'd find funny, but they are good at it. And
I will admit though that the cinematography of the League of Gentlemen, how kind of muted and grey and grim it all looks, can sometimes make it a little bit too intense to watch. But yeah, for the most part, it is mostly very, very funny, despite how dark it is.
Yeah. And yeah. Anyway, Anya, do you have anything to add?
Sorry, I just popped it on mute because I've got a bit of background noise. Not
Sorry.
really, no. No, it's all right. I mean, I kind of agree what you were saying about like it being all grey and dark. I mean, obviously I was actually in Hadfield yesterday, so the I would say the only reason it looks that sort of way is because I think they like wet the scenes and stuff. Like they used to like wet the floor even if it hadn't been raining to make it appear more grey and
They wanted
drizzly
to
than it
make
really
it
was.
look
But
like, yeah, like there's a place near me that I used to go to quite often for work and stuff called Horsham. And
yeah,
when it's been damp and it's like during the damp time of year, it's one of the most depressing looking places ever because all the buildings are like 1960s grey, very minimalist and very uniform kind of buildings. So it looks unbelievably depressing, like Royston Vasey.
yeah, yeah. No, I don't know. It doesn't really interfere with my like enjoyment of the show or anything, though.
That's
So.
fair enough. Yeah. I think it's just to me, it's like sometimes I don't know. I mean, to be fair, I've seen stuff that's far more colourful and has dark humour that is a lot more disturbing. So yeah, it's all
Yeah.
kind of some of its parts, I suppose.
Anyway, so let's move on to talking about the next sketch. Herr Lipp and Dustin. In the commentary, Richie says Dustin, not Justin. Dustin with a D for different character.
Well, to be fair, Justin wasn't played by Reece Shearsmith.
No. Although when they said when they did this sketch on stage before they did the series, they Reece was always in that role. I find it so interesting finding out the stuff they did beforehand because they would do multiple sketches with the same characters and people would come back each week because you'd expect it to just be like, oh, if it's a live show, then they would just do the same sketch each time. But
yeah,
I don't think they'd done many different sketches with Tubbs and Edward when they did the live show. I might be wrong in that, but yeah, like apparently they did, one night they did sketches where just everybody died. Anyway, so yeah, what did you think of this sketch, George?
It wasn't too different from the kind of stuff we normally see from Herr Lipp, but it was very funny, I must admit. It's like his constant double entendre puns in his ridiculously overdone camp German accent.
Yes, it does feel. I know you haven't seen it yet, but it does feel reminiscent of Neil Patrick Harris in Doctor Who last weekend.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I will look forward to seeing that then.
He actually says, "Everybody loves the balls."
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
That sounds like something Russell T Davies would write.
Yes, it's a very camp episode. It's brilliant. But
well, I like the camp episodes in Doctor Who.
Yeah. So yeah, apparently this dialogue was originally written for series 3. Obviously, Herr Lipp doesn't appear in series 3, but they did have ideas for him. So one that was going to be that he took up line dancing, but that idea ended up being given to Charlie and Stella in the in the Christmas special that we
special, yes.
last time. And then the other was that he became a football coach. So that's where they were they got all these puns that they needed to use, and
various football puns, yes.
And they do use a few of them again in the anniversary specials. Her Lipp has a brief appearance in the anniversary special, so he goes to watch a football match. And you haven't seen the anniversary specials yet, have you, George?
I haven't yet, no.
So like you said, it is the kind of sketch we've seen Her Lipp do before, but it's not reusing any actual material. So I think it's a pretty good sketch.
Yeah, it is a pretty good sketch. Yes, it's very funny.
Yeah, Anya, what did you think of this sketch?
Well, I really like Herr Lipp as a character. I think probably more than you should do, to be honest, because I know he's supposed to be a bit creepy, but he just makes me giggle. So no, but I thought this one was brilliant because, like they say in the movie, he's just sort of, without no disrespect, he's sort of just a one-note character, but they managed to bring new material every time, even when the jokes are sort of the same. Do you know what I mean by that? I just think that it's a brilliant way to introduce the same sort of jokes but make it relevant and new, especially to a panto, to have him with the mistletoe and things like that. It's a very clever way to incorporate the theme of the panto in Christmas time.
Yeah.
Brian Damage has summarized it perfectly. The sketch is a real good treat.
Yes, like Herr Lipp is sort of like one of those situations where this is a cottaging gay sort of paedophile sexual assaulter. I should not like him as much as I should, but somehow I do.
Yeah, I think I do find Her Lipp funny, but I only like him as a character when like feel sympathy for him or anything in the movie, where he's I was kind of confused by the movie at first, but basically in the movie he's not really a paedophile. He just says the wrong. He's just like a compulsive innuendoer.
Yes.
Yeah, he just messes things up.
Which is I'm definitely going to make a video on the movie at some point.
Yeah.
On all of League of Gentlemen, I've just started writing a video essay, and I'm like, no, I'm going to have to break it down into like each individual thing of League of Gentlemen because I cannot edit a video that long.
If I get the chance, maybe we could do this as my crossover video of next year. But I did write a script ages ago on which show is better, the League of Gentlemen or the Mighty Boosh. Maybe we could do that together.
Oh, that'd be interesting. I wonder if they got a sort of a different response to League of Gentlemen because they were kind of the weirdest thing on television until the Mighty Boosh came along. Or at least the weirdest thing that got a cult following. There may be even weirder shows that never got the following that either of them did. But
like both shows have lots of similarities, but they also are very different.
And similar origins as well.
Yes, started off as a stage show. There was radio dramas involved. Yeah.
They both won Perrier Awards. So yeah, it was obviously a very similar pipeline, but anyway, so like I said in the last stream, Her Lipp is creepy enough that I consider turning it off, but it's funny enough that I never do.
Yeah,
that's a good way to be.
Yeah, it's the most near the knuckle out of everything in League of Gentlemen for me. And that's near the knuckle as in makes me uncomfortable. Not near the knuckle as in stuff that hasn't aged well. I think that's a different matter.
A lot of stuff in League of Gentlemen hasn't aged well, but I still find it funny.
I don't think that much stuff in League of Gentlemen has aged poorly. Like apart from Barbara.
And Tavalouris.
Yeah, but with Tavalouris, it's really just the fact he wears blackface. There's nothing else about like him as a character.
Yeah, it's like you could debate that perhaps it's a little bit of oversensitivity there because they're not trying to be. He's not being a minstrel. It's just that Shearsmith and Pemberton have a weird fascination for the look of the old blackface, because they do use it a lot in their stuff.
Brian Damage has commented again. I think League has possibly worn better. I think I love the boosh, but it rarely gets repeated and is possibly a bit too left field for most. The League has the British dark humour as a basis, and he's a mummer. Talking about Tavalouris, that reminds me. There's a really good show from I think earlier this year or the year before with Bridget Christie in it called The Change. And before you joke, is it about the menopause? It is about the menopause.
It's really good though.
So. Yeah, have you seen it?
Yeah. I watched it with my mum. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But yeah, Paul Whitehouse plays this old villager, and he says to this black character, because the mummers aren't allowed to do blackface anymore. He's like, it's a political minefield, all this blackface thing, and she says, no, it isn't. You just don't do it. Tavalouris likes that play. I imagine he does. So yeah, I think with the Mighty Boosh, I think that fewer of the jokes work for me than the Mighty Boosh. I don't think it's as clever as League of Gentlemen. That and like use of the R word, I think, has aged the Mighty Boosh pretty badly. Not that there's things in that department in League that have aged badly, because there are, but yeah, also sort of more blackface in Boosh, and also the use of blackface in League is more confusing.
Yeah, isn't Tavalouris like not human? Isn't his skin black and white? So technically,
yeah, they say he's like some
not really.
He say he's some sort of demon or otherworldly creature, but yeah, that is the actual color of his skin in context of the series.
Yeah, a lot can be done with makeup. I love that scene in series 3 where he says to Brian, "Your wife knows a lot about curling eyelashes. You didn't know that, do you?" And then 5 minutes later he goes, "What's my wife's name again?" "Katie." "Ah, Dave." So yeah. Anyway, let's go to talk about. This is the next sketch, isn't it? Yeah, the joke shop sketch. Also, we should mention the costume changes in this are really, really impressive.
They are.
George, this is the only of one of their shows where they did full costumes for all the characters. In their other live shows, they would do tuxedos for the first act, which is what they used to do. Even if it was with Royston and Vasey characters. And then the second half would be all Royston Vasey characters, and they would be in full costume. But yeah, it's so impressive, the costume changes in this. It's insane. There's a fantastic behind the scenes documentary that they filmed for this show, and that bit later on where Mark Gatiss is playing one of the elves, or Mark Gatiss, I never know how to say his name. The bit where he's
Gatiss.
Yeah, well, that bit where Mark Gatiss is one of the elves, and then Bernice throws him off. Behind that chair, he's changing into the security guard. So he has very little time to change. Obviously, to be fair, he doesn't have to change that much because it's just his head that you see in that sketch. But yeah, so it's like the costumes are impressive, and also the costume changes they managed to do are really impressive.
Yeah.
It's a source of many a joke when your actual name is Dave. I'm not really a Brian. Well, my dad was talking to a friend of his called Dave, and he mentioned League of Gentlemen. He's like, "Oh yeah, I know of it because people saying hello Dave all the time, but I've never actually seen it."
Yeah.
Which was also the only sketch my dad knew of League of Gentlemen until I showed it to him. But anyway, so yeah, we've got the joke shop sketch with it's Mike, isn't it? Steve's Legz Akimbo character. I can't remember.
Is
I
it
think it
It's
is.
Dave?
Dave,
It's Dave,
that's
isn't
it.
it? Ollie, Dave, and Phil Proctor. Yeah.
That was it.
I don't know his last name, but Dave, yeah.
Yes. So, anyway, Anya, what do you think of this sketch?
It's funny and everything, and it sounds like sacrilegious to say, but I just don't like Mark's character in this sketch. It's just not like my favourite one from the show as a whole. But in terms of like doing it for theatre, it works brilliantly, and the gags are really, really clever. Like the way they change and things like that. Like it's funny and it makes me giggle, but it would help if I liked the character more. There's only a couple of characters in the league that I don't particularly like, and that happens to be one of them. So it's not my favourite sketch, but in the way it's performed and done, it's brilliant. Both the guys are amazing, so there's no faults there. It's just my personal bias that gets in the way. So
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I don't dislike this sketch, but it's not. But yeah, it's not one that stands out. I think what the interesting thing that they did with him in series 3 is that he's such a one-note sketch character. It's interesting to see them expand that character in series 3.
yeah,
But yeah, like I find the sketch funny, but he's definitely not one of my favorite characters. What did you think, George?
So just to clarify, are we talking about Steve Pemberton's character here?
No,
oh sorry, no.
we're talking about Mark's character.
Okay, I really like him, but for some reason I always thought his name was Sam. I don't know why.
I can't remember the name of the guy with one arm.
I think his name is Sam.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
somebody on Twitter's just come through and said that Dave's last name is Parks. I think. Yeah.
It's probably, if it's not in the show, it'll be in the local book.
Yeah, I actually really like Mark Gatiss' character here. He was only in 2 episodes in the series, and even the first time he appeared was just one sketch in series 2. But no, I think he's great. He's a very funny character. It's just this guy who thinks that the darkest and most disturbing maudlin stuff is funny to him. I really like that kind of character. I also just love the casual thing when he has Steve Pemberton's character put his hand in the box and then it goes across the street, across the stage, and it's like, yeah, it's a hole in the space-time continuum.
Yeah, that is a very silly bit. I do like it.
It was very funny. I like that.
Anyway, so yeah, I like how it's linked in with the story of the communitivity, and of course this is after series 3 where they had interconnecting stories far more, and obviously this isn't nearly as elaborate, but it's nice that they've got this that still got an interesting narrative working through here. So anyway, let's move on. Now we have Dean Tavalouris.
So was this character in the show? I don't remember.
Series 3. He's the last episode of series 3. You know, they have those little sketch characters that appear in one episode each of series 3.
Yeah.
He appears in the last episode. He's a magician. He's trying to like do card. Takes his video camera out and tries to get people to try and show people his card tricks, and they're all unimpressed. And so yeah, he's definitely my favorite out of those little sketch characters of series 3.
He reminded me a lot of Mr. Like I said when we were watching it, he kind of feels like a prototype for Mr. Jelly.
I feel Ollie Plimsolls reminds me more of Mr. Jelly a bit.
It's a bit, but
yeah.
I don't know. This guy definitely gave me Mr. Jelly vibes.
He's too nice to be like Mr. Jelly. He's too sweet.
Well, both do magic tricks, so that would be a connection. But yeah, he's definitely my favorite out of those little sketch characters. He was in the same episode as the dog cinema sketches in that episode, And I'm just like, there's so much going on. Why is there the dog cinema? I really don't like the dog cinema sketches. It's not just the yellow face that Steve is doing. I just don't find like the premise in the in the local book in one of the Royston Vasey newspapers. There's an article about the dog cinema, and that's fine. But I really don't like the dog cinema sketches in series 3 in that last episode. But yeah, Mark Coleman says, I feel you on dog cinema. Yeah. But yeah, actually, I believe I'm right in thinking that he was originally, I think it was originally called Simon, and he was originally supposed to have a much bigger role in that episode. I think he was supposed to kind of have the role that Brian has in that episode. But I think that was quite an early stage of the production of that series. And so yeah. Anyway, so George, what did you think of that sketch?
Well, it was a very quick one, but it was very funny.
Yeah, it is good. I always find Dean's accent really funny.
Yeah.
Him just like trying to put on an American accent. He does a bit more in the TV series, but yeah. Anyway, Anya, what did you think of this sketch?
Yeah, I love this one. Dean's a character that I actually do like, so that always helps. But yeah, no, I think it's so brilliant. Reese is brilliant in this one. The way he commands the stage, especially when he's like running about trying to get the audience like psyched up, is just fantastic. The hold he has over people is amazing to watch, and I just think like the physical gags in this one, especially with the green handkerchief, is just hilarious. So yeah, very childish sense of humor, so I do like this sketch.
Yeah, that bit where he goes, "This is no ordinary cloth." It's always stuck in my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am a big fan of this sketch, and yeah, absolutely, he's so high energy in this. I mean, he is in general, but in this I think in this show particularly with of course Pam Doove and Papa Abanazarou and yeah, it's very high energy. So yeah, and then we had this doctor sketch, which actually the doctor is inspired by a documentary they watched about a trans woman, which didn't influence stuff about Barbara a bit. But yeah, there's this scene in this documentary where this trans woman goes to the doctor, and this doctor is just horrible and really dismissive of her and really rude. And so yeah, that's the inspiration for this character. So some lines are lifted directly from that documentary. So sit down as usual, and you cannot buy my opinion the way you would buy a used motor car. We're both from the documentary, if memory serves. And yeah, it's a really so yeah, I'm not, they're not my favorite characters of series 3. You know, I think they're interesting, but yeah, this sketch isn't one of my favorites, but it's not a bad sketch. And I do like the fact that they reuse Mrs. Beasley, who appears in a charity shop sketch in series 2, like, because it feels like it's a more complete world with these sort of side characters. And so yeah. Anyway, Anya, what did you think of this sketch?
I really like this one. I like both the characters in season 3. So I don't know, there's nothing else to say other than I really like it. I think it's really clever as well. I think another reason I like it is completely unrelated to the League of Gentlemen, is I'm a big Elvis fan, so it always makes me laugh to hear Steve Pemberton shout out Elvis on stage as well. So all of it aligns for me in this one. So I really like this one. It's a bit it's a bit weird when he starts touching her up on the table, but apart from that, it sort of adds to the humour. So yeah, I like this one. I think it's brilliant. It doesn't really add anything to the nativity plot, but apart from that, it's fantastic.
Okay, and George, what did you think of this sketch?
Yeah, like I said, I found it weird in just sort of all the various old British playground rhymes and games that he came up with for diagnosing or treating this woman. It was so bizarre, but I found it really funny.
Oh, it reminded me of the last weekend as well. Every time I see it, I mean to say, when they do about the milk lemonade where the corner chocolate's made, it always
Yeah.
makes me think of the last weekend as well.
I
which
haven't
makes me
seen
smile.
Last Weekend.
Oh, sorry, I won't spoil it.
Good.
They just make a reference
It's already
to
been
that.
spoiled for me slightly, but
They make
yeah,
a reference to that rhyme in it. That's all. I won't tell you what happens. But yeah, no, that rhyme is in that episode of Inside Number 9. So make sure you watch that, by the way. It's like one of the best ones ever. But yeah, it always makes me think of that.
I have heard good things. It's frustrating because I have seen about half of Inside Number 9 and I'm trying to pace myself. But it's frustrating because to then also be like sort of engaged in the online fandom because, you know, even if you don't get spoilers, like I know Wise Owl is going to be a dark, messed up episode because everyone talks about how dark and messed up Wise Owl is.
It is, yeah, but I won't spoil it for you. So yeah, no, I didn't watch it in order, to be fair. I just watched the ones that I'd heard the most about. So the first one I ever watched was Cold Comfort because that's my mum's favourite one. But yeah, no, it must be frustrating to interact with people that have seen all of them all the time.
Yeah. And when Elle, who I think you're also mutuals with on Twitter, posts a new edit, I always have to go, are there any spoilers in this one? Because the videos are wonderful. I don't want to have to skip them, but some of them I do. Anyway, George, what did you think of this sketch?
You already asked me.
Oh, I did already ask you. Yes, I did. Sorry. So we'll move on to the next one. So we have Geoff. Let's get a shot of Geoff.
Yes.
Yeah, I've had stuck in my head this week. No, Geoff, we are not playing Russian roulette. It is Christmas. So I think that's something you're going to be saying when our relatives start arguing this Christmas. So yeah, I do love this sketch. It's not a very long one. I think it's shorter than the Man Wow sketch from the previous live show. And but yeah, I think it is a brilliant sketch, and I love the ending of it as well. So George, what did you think of this sketch?
I'm not the biggest fan of Geoff and his friends' sketches, but yeah, this was quite funny. I like it is kind of funny, the idea that he would play Russian roulette with a magazine-based gun, because it doesn't matter, like, because in that situation, the first bullet or the first trigger will always have a bullet in it, because that's how those guns work. But yeah, it was funny. It was like when Steve's character started choking on the bullet, and then he Heimlichs it out of him, and it goes right into Mark Gatiss' chest. That was really good.
Yeah, I do think that's a fantastic idea. And apparently that effect where he hits his hand on his chest and the blood comes out would only work about half of the time.
It looks like yeah, that looks like the kind of situation, because by the looks of it, what he did was that he must have pressed like a blood pack or a squib inside of his chest to make it squirt out.
Yeah, that's what he did. I think there was a slit in the shirt as well, so that it would squeeze out. But yeah, I think that's a really clever ending to the sketch. I actually really like Geoff. I think he's one of my favorite characters in the show. I think he's really good in series 1 and 2, and then I like how they expand on him in the in series 3, and
the third series. Yeah, it gets a whole episode dedicated to him.
yeah, and
he actually gets quite a happy ending in the third series.
Yeah, he's just a sort of is quite sad, pathetic character, and I think it
Well, he's
works
also
quite well.
psychotic.
And of course, it's another angry Reese character.
Yeah, which is like that's
So-
kind of the archetype he plays. He plays the angry characters.
Yes, and there's a interview from a few years ago where I think it was around the time of the reunion tour where the league were asked who their favorite characters to play were, and Reese said, "Oh, it's Geoff," and Mark Gatiss said, "No, no." They asked what character Geoff is. You. So I think Geoff, Ollie Plimsolls, and Mr. Jelly are the three that I know of that are referred to as being the most like him.
It's just Reese being Reese.
Yeah.
Which I always imagine him being a very subdued person. Like when I see him do interviews or do less surreal characters, he always seems like a very laid back, almost has a sort of arrested, meek development about him, really.
Yeah, I think he talks about this in interviews. There's just like a lot of suppressed anger. I think he's kind of like Benjamin in series 1. He's just quite quiet and polite when everything around him is clearly annoying him.
Yeah.
And so the characters he plays are the catharsis. Mark Coleman says, yeah, short and not at all sweet. Yeah. And but yeah, I find Geoff really funny. He's got some of my favorite lines in the movie as well. So anyway, Anya, what do you think of this sketch?
I love this one. It's actually one of my favourite ones from the whole show. Everything about it is brilliant for me. I love this trio of characters. Like you, Geoff is one of my favourite characters from the show. So it's brilliant. And I really like the fact as well that you think he's finally going to get to use that gun, and then they take it away when Steve swallows the bullet too. So that bit of like toying with the audience is brilliant. And this isn't really to do with Geoff. I just like the little detail that you can see on the back of Steve's shirt, where it would be like ripped open to get to the next costume. I love those little details that you can see on the stage outfits, and trying to figure out how it all gets put together and things like that. And also Geoff dressed as Santa is just the best Christmas gift you could ask for. So everything about this one's perfect for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's. I think I wouldn't have minded if it went on for longer. Actually, this sketch, but yeah, it is a good one. Actually, there's George, you must watch. There's they did a behind the scenes documentary for their previous live show, and they do the Mau Mau sketch, but on one of the last shows, Mark Gatiss's character Brian pulls out a gun and says, Geoff, you have made me tell this joke for 110 times, because it's like the 111th show. So he was like, right, so now you are going to tell the joke. And he did do a few other improvised things on that show as well, and actually they did pull some pranks on this one that you see in the live tour documentary as well. Anyway, but yeah, it's interesting. How do you guys like see your characters as favorite characters? Because I've found what's interesting is I list my favorite characters as like the characters that make me laugh the most, and my dad goes to the ones that like he sympathizes with the most. So it's like Tubbs and Mickey, like the sweet innocent characters who only commit crimes because they're in love with somebody. So yeah, how do you guys do you think you rate your favorite characters by how much you like them, or just how funny they are? Or
it's one of those kind of like X Factor things, as in like the term X Factor, not the TV show. But it's sort of like one of those things where you can't put your finger on what it is that makes you like them. It's just something happens, really.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows that my favorite is Pauline, but I don't there isn't a particular reason other than the fact of, I think, objectively, I know she's not a very nice person, but other than the fact of, I just think she's absolutely fantastic. Like I remember really well the first time I watched The League of Gentlemen, and the first time she came on screen, instantly I was like, that's the one that's going to be my favourite. I just knew as soon as she started speaking that she was going to be my favourite. And then from that point on, everything she did, I was just sort of behind her. And I don't know why, because obviously, like, you shouldn't clip people around the face with a clipboard, but it really makes me laugh. So I would say that it was just the fact of, I sort of fell in love with her the first time I saw her, and then everything else that she did made me like her even more. But another favorite character of mine is Tubbs, and this it is the sympathy thing with that as well, because she is just so sweet. I just want to sort of protect her. So I would say it's just sort of the thing of which one grabs your attention first, and it just so happened that it was Pauline that really got my attention when I watched it for the first time. So
Yeah. And I think I always found Edward funny, but I think I sympathise with him more. I don't totally sympathise with him. I think he's still an awful person, but I started to sympathise him more the more the show went on, because of the few moments where he shows care for Tubbs later in the show. And I think also because you kind of feel like Tubbs wouldn't survive without Edward.
yeah,
So yeah, it's quite sad, really. But particularly in the anniversary specials, which I won't spoil for you, George. But
Thank you.
and Mark Coleman said, while you were talking about Pauline, I think it was while you were talking about Pauline, definitely the characters I empathise with. Yeah, I did empathise with Pauline by the end of the show. But by the end I empathised with her a bit, but I am still Team Ross. She broke Ross.
no, it's unacceptable. You can't go into somebody's workplace and speak to them like that. He gets everything he deserves. So, but we'll never agree on that. So.
Oh, that bit where he says "dull scum" in series 3, I was like, you were the chosen one, Anakin. I couldn't believe it. But yeah, I think the arcs of those characters are the best in the show. I think it is. That's the thing. They start off as sketch characters, and then they just kind of build them out as characters, and you're like, what am I even watching anymore? I'm so engaged.
The Job Centre trio is amazing, especially like you said, the character arcs that they go on. It's just incredible to watch how much how emotionally attached you get to these characters that were sketch characters, but then they just become such a big part of your life, really, through the way they're written and performed. Is amazing.
Yeah,
it is incredible. Something similar happened when I watched Green Wing. Green Wing is quite a different show, but it does start off a bit more. It doesn't have as much of a structural change, but you kind of you turn up for like the sort of silly sketch like stuff, but then you really get invested in the love triangle in it. I don't know, have either of you guys seen Green Wing?
I have not. No.
No, I haven't. No.
It's really good. It was written by the people who wrote the sketch show Smack the Pony.
Okay.
Olivia Colman's in it. I can't remember her name, but the actress who was in The Wife in British Empire is in it. Stephen Mangan and Tamsin Greger in it, and Mark Heap, who plays Jim in Friday Night Dinner, he's in it, and also I can't remember her name. Michelle Gomez, who played Missy in Doctor Who.
Okay.
She's brilliant in it.
Okay, I have seen a clip from that, but I have not seen the show properly.
Yeah. So like I said, it is quite sketch-like. It's quite a sketch-like workplace comedy, especially Michelle Gomez's character, who's quite bonkers. But yeah, there is a story going. There is a storyline. It is more of a sitcom than League of Gentlemen. So it's not so much of a structural change, but you just kind of end up being more invested in the relationships than you were at the beginning.
Yeah.
So anyway, And I think while you were talking about the job centre characters, don't forget Mickey. Yes. You should certainly not forget Mickey. Mickey doesn't have as much character development, but he's very lovely.
He is.
He's
yes.
just sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why my dad likes him. Anyway, let's go for Pam Doove. George, what do you think of this sketch?
It was actually kind of funny to kind of play around with what we know, because Pam Doove is not like, we don't know much about her. She just has this one very funny but very small sketch. So it was very funny to play around with the one element we know about her character, and that she has this weird compulsion that when she's acting to speak as if she's talking in gibberish. And so basically, the casting director says, speak as if you're speaking in gibberish, and she speaks completely coherently.
Jesus has been bored, it's good. Yeah, I think it's just such a brilliant sketch. I absolutely love it. And the whole thing of playing with expectations with what is basically a very simple character. And she does feel like even though she's the most basic character, she's played in a way that feels so natural and real.
Yeah.
That way she clutches her arm, and I mean, obviously a bit more so in the sketch in the show, but in the TV show, because it's not done quite as broadly as it is on stage, obviously. But yeah, it's she is out of all the very basic one-note sketch characters, I think she is definitely my favorite. Anya, what did you think of this sketch?
Oh, it's brilliant. Pam's one of my favorite characters, so anything with her really is going to make me giggle. But like you said, like the way of sort of rejecting what everybody was expecting from this and having her do the opposite of speaking so coherently is just fantastic. It's brilliant. And one of my favorite bits from this whole thing is when Steve says, "Oh, Ollie can't be here for obvious reasons," and she does that like little look behind and like, "What are you talking about?" That's brilliant. Everything about it is so clever, and I think this is one of the most high energy scenes for Reese throughout. And sometimes I catch it, sometimes I don't. If you look to the right, you can sometimes see the person that works at the theatre, so like the stagehand or whatever, just look absolutely bemused when she does do her gibberish and starts jumping about, which always makes me giggle. It's so funny. So yeah, this one's a real standout scene for me because of Reese's performance in it. His energy is just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I hadn't noticed the stagehand. I'll have to look for that next time I watch it.
He's on the right, and when she starts jumping about, or when Reese starts jumping about and doing all the like silly Pam noises and stuff, his jaw like almost hits the floor. It's hilarious to watch.
They did her wrong, bless it. They ripped away her happy ending in series 3. Oh, well, what actually they said happened with the series 3. So she's mentioned, we see her and she's mentioned in series 3. So we find out in the Geoff episode that there is the orange juice ad, and it is delivered the way she delivers it. But what they said in the commentary, that what the story they'd sort of thought up for it was that they actually got a different actress to do it, but they got it to do it like her, which is what they thought would have happened if it really happened. So yeah, and anyway, so did I ask you what you thought of this sketch, Josh? Yes, I did.
Yes, you did.
Okay, Les McQueen. George, what did you think of the Les McQueen sketch?
This was actually kind of interesting because it's basically him going on one of his many long diatribes, boring the hell out of somebody. But it's got a really funny plot. So basically, he describes the story of, him being on stage and then potentially being in an accident. And then, of course, at the end, it's revealed that he's not actually waiting to be in audition. He's actually waiting to be processed because he's actually just died.
Yeah, I think it is a really good idea for that sketch.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not one of my favourite sketches because the others are so good. Obviously, it's a very low energy one in comparison, which, you know, again, there's nothing against the actual sketch. I think it's a very good sketch, but
Yeah.
but yeah, it doesn't particularly stand out. It's probably not one of my favourite Les sketches. But yeah, it's good. Anyway, Anya, what did you think of this sketch?
Yeah, I kind of agree with what you said, to be honest. It's not really a standout one. I don't know, George, if you've watched the documentary that they made on the Panto. It seems like there was sort of a bit of leeway with what they did during this one, and some of the clips that they showed in the documentary I actually enjoyed more than what was put in the version that we've just watched, where it played out a bit differently. I mean, I think Mark's great in it, and he does the part fantastically, but like you say, it's just so low energy that compared to the rest, it falls a bit flat for me. But the characterization is still on point. Obviously, it's still all good. So I don't dislike it. Just compared to the other ones, it's not on the same level for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in that case, I think we'll go straight on to the COMMUNATIVITY. So, George, what did you think of what do you think at the beginning of the COMMUNATIVITY? Because it's basically like a lot of sketches back to back, so I feel like we have to go through each one.
Yeah.
What do you think of the opening?
That part where Steve Pemberton plays a Jewish person.
I
shouldn't have laughed at that, but I could not help myself. That was hilarious.
Yeah, it's. I love how it's just the polar opposite of what Phil was doing. He was just knows how bad it is and is just, you know, half-arsing it.
Yeah.
Steve's character just absolutely goes for it. And that nodding where he says, "I am a Jew," where he like nods to the audience as if that's going to convince them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think that's something inappropriate to laugh at. They're laughing at stereotypes, and but yeah, anyway, and Ollie in his angel costume is just, it's so brilliant. It's probably the most iconic thing from this show, or at least from what I've seen online. It's the bit that people remember, and I love how his halo moves as he sort of goes over to Phil, and yeah, Reece Smith really goes for it in as Ollie in this. Not that he ever held back in the others, but he like really, really, really goes for it in this scene. And like I said, the others are great. I love Mark Gatiss going, "I am a carpenter."
That was funny, especially because my dad is a carpenter, so that makes me laugh.
Have I asked you both about this sketch? I can't remember.
Yes, you did.
Yes. Okay.
Got a bit of goldfish memory going on, haven't you?
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, this bit with Anne, that bit with Anne at the end. This was out of all, this was the bit that was most like, oh, this hasn't aged well for me. The bit of her, like, obviously she's like one of those characters that is kind of, they're not explicitly mentally disabled, but they're very clearly coded mentally disabled.
They're kind of going that way, especially with how she's also epileptic as well.
Yeah, or the epilepsy bit. Oh, that's the bit I think has possibly aged the worst out of everything they've done. Or at least one of the things that has aged the worst out of everything they've done. There's a little sketch that they did on the series 3 DVD, a Dean Tavalouris sketch, where similarly it ends with him having a seizure at the end. It's just like, oh god. But anyway, let's move on to the next bit. That's a shot of the audience. It doesn't tell us where we are. Ah, yes, I'll get both of them up. There we go. Iris and Mrs. Levinson. Not really. Do either of you guys have much to say about this? I don't have much to say apart from it's they're good characters and it's good to see them again.
A funny little bit, yeah.
Yeah, nothing more to say really other than that, and that I'm glad that they were included because they are some of the most iconic characters for me from the show. So yeah, just happy to see them really.
Yeah, they're brilliant. And
Alvin.
next we have Pop. Oh, this is the bit of him on the phone to Joseph is so funny. I really
God.
yeah.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me that he would want to do bestiality porn, but it's just like,
yeah.
although what was it that he said? It's like she's a something or something. What do you think I am, a pervert or something? What was it?
Mary Queen.
A Mary Queen.
Which, if you remember, it's his the euphemism he uses for a gay person in the series. So
I see. I thought he was saying she's an American.
Well, that's what Sean Gibson's character thinks. He says in the episode she appears in, or the first episode she appears in, because she does make cameos later. But yeah, I think it is. I don't know if you could quite call it one of the best Pop sketches just because it's so short, but it's some of the best Pop lines, I think. And anyway, is it? Oh, it's him. If I could get a good shot of him. No, I don't think I will be able to get a shot of him. But Alvin, nice little bit of Alvin again. You know, I mean, there's only a little bit of him, but he has some good lines. Yeah, do you guys have anything to say about Alvin's appearance in this?
It was one of
really.
It was one of the bits that made me laugh the first time. Yeah, it was one of the bits that made me laugh the most the first time I watched the panto, just because the lines are so funny. But he's brilliant in the actual show itself as well. I just think this panto is so clever because basically, I'm not sure if it is every single character, but it feels like every single character has a spoken line in this panto, which is just an incredible thing to be able to do.
And there's pretty much there's very few sort of straight man parts in the show as well.
There are, yeah.
Sort of, yeah, it's just sort of funny character after funny character. There's Steve's Legz Akimbo character, and then there's what's he called? It's Mrs. Beasley. That's another sort of straight character. But yeah, apart from that, there's very few sort of straight man roles in the whole show. But it still works in spite of that. It doesn't feel like they're sort of competing for attention when there's more than one character together. Although it probably helps that there are plenty of sketches where it is just one of them, one or two of them. But anyway, so yeah, we've got the just going from Ollie to that. You think, blimey, he probably only had like a few seconds to change out of that costume.
Yeah,
it is insane how with the poncho as well. I would think that the poncho would be a further complication. But no, that poncho Cardi thing that I can't remember if it's Rini or Vinny, this character.
I think it's Vinny. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure it's Vinny, and that Steve's is called Rini, I think.
Yeah, I think it's just what was I going to say? Yeah, I think it's it is surprising that just how quick the costume changes. And so yeah, again, I like the sketch. It's they are obviously quite one-note sketch characters that do get expanded in series 3, but they don't get expanded that much the way the joke shop character was. It's just expanded on it's not really expanded on that much. Well, they aren't really expanded as characters that much, I think would be the right way to put it, even though they do get a bigger role that isn't just the regular charity shop sketch. but yeah, again, it's short, it's funny, it's all right. Go out with you. Lovely to see you. I think Reese, it says in the commentary, he had about 25 layers on. Haha. Hello, by the way, just popped in. Lovely to see you as always. And yeah, you mentioned earlier he's wearing all of them in that first appearance as Ollie. It just makes you wonder, does that mean he had multiple Ollie costumes on for all the times he changed in and out of Ollie? Or did he have to get back into the Ollie costume? That's something I wonder. And we've got oh, I keep going to click on it, but then Discord messages pop up. And help behind the stage. Yeah, with the costumes, yeah, they did have people who sort of likes to literally tear the costumes off and then push them back on the stage, pretty much. Which you do see a bit of in the behind the scenes video. It's so fascinating, all the behind the scenes stuff that they've done. It makes you think that they don't really do video diaries and stuff anymore. Not them in particular, just as an industry, that's just not something that people do. I did watch a video essay on it that was good. It was talking about why that is, but anyway, I'm waffling. So the stage falls on Ollie, and yeah, that's it for Act 1. And then we go into the panto. And Anya, is this your favourite part of the panto?
How did you guess that? Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
This is a really funny part. A very, very funny bit.
Yeah, it's the best bit of the whole thing for me. That dress is amazing, especially the pen motif that the dragon's got in its mouth as well, and all the pens hanging over it. She's never looked so pretty. She is the most beautiful woman in the whole kingdom. But the interaction that Steve has with the audience is just amazing. Everything about this couldn't be better. So yeah.
Just got to do something quick. I'll be back in a second.
Yeah, it's not your regular Pauline sketch, is it? But it is one of my favourite Pauline moments. But yeah, Eve Barr, for those of you who don't know, is they have this guy who's a French guy who designs all their costumes called Eve Barr, who has for Reese Smith and Steve Pemberton has designed costumes on all the productions they've written for. So he also did the costumes on Psychoville and on Inside Number 9. And yeah, I think they say that he won awards for their shows, even though typically those awards are costume awards are typically only won by costume dramas. But yeah, his costuming is absolutely brilliant, and this one is definitely one of his best. And there is, of course, a deleted scene. I don't know if you've heard of this, Anya. There's a deleted scene that had to cut for music copyright reasons of where Kathy Carter Smith turns up and she does a sketch with Pauline, and she's in that giant computer costume.
I've seen the outfit. It's ridiculous. It's so panto. It's amazing. Yeah, I don't know how Reese was moving about in that, but yeah. No, I've seen the photos.
Go out with you said magnificent. Eve Barr did such amazing work on the costumes, as usual. Yeah, absolutely. There's an interesting little interview with him that they do at the end of on the series 3 special features. That's good. And but yeah, I think he's absolutely brilliant. And of course they give him such great material to work with. I think he said he had great fun working on all the clown stuff in Psychoville, like the clown funeral and clown court. It's brilliant. So George, what did you think of this sketch?
It was very funny. It was like taking those traditional kind of pantomime dame elements of interacting with the audience and putting the League of Gentlemen's adult spin on it. It was brilliant.
Yeah, it is brilliant. I think some of those some of the jokes they got from a book of panto puns or something. The ones that my sister's so ugly, my dad used to take her work so she didn't have to kiss her goodbye. but yeah, I think it's brilliant. And I was actually thinking, I think it's strange, out of all the sketches where they play women, Pauline's the only one where they sort of make nudge nudge wink wink jokes of the fact that it's Steve Pemberton in a costume, which I almost miss, just because Steve Pemberton just sort of disappears into Pauline.
Yeah.
I never stopped to think, oh, that's a meta joke, just because he sort of vanishes into the role. But yeah, the panto-fied costumes of all the Royston Vasey characters in this half are brilliant. And I do like the story they've got. The story doesn't go through as many of the sketches in this one as it did in the previous half, although it is more of a story than the previous half. So like the Bernice sketch isn't really relevant to anything, but yeah, I like it. It's just the plot. It's just like it's very simple. It's just a little mashup of, you know, the typical panto plots, and sort of adapting the typical characters. Obviously Pauline's a dame here, but particularly Widow Twanky. Yeah, that way they adapted the Royston Vasey characters to fit into these different archetypes, I think is really brilliant.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's a good sketch. It's a shame they had to cut the Pauline sketch, the second one, because she's a very enjoyable character, even though I'm Team Ross. And there's a bit with Mickey in front of the curtain of Daisy, but there's not much to say about that. I'm pretty sure that's just so that Risha Smith can get into a costume for the next bit. I love that bit where Mickey goes, "I know just the man." He's a fireman. So yeah, we get Risha Smith as Papa Abanazarou. I do think it's a great idea with the costume to do that mask, and it works so well. It
does,
shouldn't work this well, but it does. And then after sort of setting up the show, we've got a psychic sketch. So George, what did you think of this sketch?
I thought it was okay. I felt it was a little bit drawn out. Yeah, I just didn't quite find it as funny as normal, because normally Papa Lazarou is the best part of the League of Gentlemen, but yeah, this one just didn't do it for me.
Yeah, I suppose it is a disadvantage is that this sketch is something you've seen before, because it is.
Yes.
Apart from like one or two jokes, it is like exactly the scene from the series. But yeah, I like it more than you do, I think. But yeah, I think it is mainly because, like I said earlier, it's probably partially because I had seen series 2 not long before seeing this, whereas this was in 2005. So when people were watching it, it was the series 2 had first aired 5 years earlier, so it wouldn't have been as fresh in people's memories. So yeah, I think that definitely makes a difference. But yeah, I see what you mean with this sketch. And Anya, what did you think of this sketch?
Yeah, I like it. It's not like stand out for me or anything, because Papa Lazarou, I feel like I'm going to get crucified for saying this, he's not my favourite character from the League, but some of the things he does. Yeah, I know. I like Keith, so technically I do like Lazarou, but I would pick Keith over Lazarou. But anyway, that's a different thing. This sketch is funny and it does make me giggle, but like you say, it's one of the very few that's been reused pretty much as it was in the series. So there's nothing new here really, but I like the costume. The costume makes me laugh more than the jokes, to be honest. But yeah, no, it reminded me a bit as well. I'm sure it was after the League wrote the sketch, but a little bit of the thing from Phoenix Nights as well, where they have the crap psychic come in and just basically make a load of stuff up on stage for money. So it just plays on those archetypes, but it is funny, and Steve's costume makes me laugh as well. So yeah, there are good points in it.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I do like the Tavalouris sketches, but I think he is comparatively overrated just because, like
Thank
Edward and
you.
Tubbs, he is one of the strangest characters in the show, and that's why he's the most iconic.
Yes,
And that's
for sure.
the reason why, people don't remember the other characters, which feel like a strange kitchen sink drama. They mostly remember Edward Tubbs and Tavalouris because they're the most bizarre characters. And actually, I love that bit in the League of Gentlemen's Apocalypse where it's the only bad special effects shot because in the film, all the other special effects shots are really impressive. But there's this bit at the very end where Geoff turns around and there's Tavalouris and Edward and Tubbs waving, and like they've been screened badly into the church. And I bet they were just like, "Wait, we need to show these characters again.
Yeah.
We put them on the poster. We should have them at the end of the film as well." So yeah, like I said, I do like Tavalouris, and I like how there's so much that's kind of unexplained about him. But yeah, he's I think he is overrated, but I think that's just mainly because people know the original Tavalouris sketch so well. I think it's just and the fact he is so strange. Anyway, so I like how they then end with this sort of very panto thing of them being the chase around the stage, and it's this big panto stage. And I think it says in the commentary they purposely didn't try and make this feel like a parody of a panto. They do it as a panto. They just do it as the League of Gentlemen crossed with a panto.
Yes.
They don't really make fun of the tropes or anything, which I think it's that sort of sincerity to the genre that helps it work so well. And anyway, I've got some messages. Swedish Llama says, "Hello, people. Hello, Swedish Llama.
Hello."
And Go Out with You says, "I think I actually prefer Abanazarou on stage. I love the psychic number. Very funny. No, you can't talk to him. He's dead." Yeah, the delivery of that line, I think, is better in that version. It's like, well, yeah, duh. Obviously, you can't talk to him. I do that. Yeah, that I do. Yeah, I do think I probably do prefer him on stage. I'd like the I like the way they used his role in this with the sort of the panto villain thing, but yeah, I just think that in terms of especially in terms of people who are sort of more casually fans of League of Gentlemen, I think he's I think he's very well known, but he's kind of disproportionately well known just because of how weird he is. Whereas I think I think a lot of fans do love him, but they wouldn't consider him like one of their favorite things about the show, especially because he's not in it that much. But and we get nearly said Chinnery. Then we get Hilary Briss behind the mirror. George, what did you think of this bit?
It was quite interesting to see Hilary Briss and Tavalouris interacting because they're my two favorite villains in the show. So yeah, it was really funny, even like not in a canon and very regular sort of way, but it was fun. I felt.
Yeah, I think it was interesting crossing these two characters who'd never interacted before, and it's a strange role for Chinnery. Not Chinnery. It's just a strange role for Hilary Briss.
Yeah.
But I don't know why they came to put him in there in that role, but yeah, it does work, and I like the the speaking rhyme, like, "Oh, I only did it because you were doing it."
Yeah.
But Anya, what did you think of the Hilary Briss bit?
It's actually one of my favourite bits of the show because it's just so bizarre that it's amazing to get Hilary interacting with Lazarou, and it makes the Lazarou scenes more enjoyable for me as well. And also, I feel like Hilary is a bit more camp in this than he ever is in the show as well, which makes me laugh. The costumes are amazing as well, and just everything about it. It's so panto that it's incredible with the rhyming and obviously the Snow White references with the mirror mirror. All of it's fantastic. It just works so well within the genre, like you were saying, like commit to the bit with the sincerity of the genre, and it's just fantastic. It is genuinely one of my favorite little 2-moment bits of the whole show.
Yeah, I do think it's good. Anyway, let's see if we could get both Chef Lisgoe and Barry back. So we probably have to get it towards the end of the sketch. But yeah, so George, did you remember these characters from series 3?
Vaguely, yes. Yeah, it's like for a minute I thought that Reece Shearsmith's character was Ross, but then I realised, oh wait, no, I do kind of remember these characters from series 3.
Yeah, again, they were kind of sort of those more sketch-like characters in series 3, and what was I going to say? So what did you think of this sketch?
It was quite funny the way that I forget the name of the characters, but the fat guy that Steve Pemberton is playing tricked Reece Shearsmith's character when counting out the money.
Yeah, that's another sort of old panto gag.
And it was also really funny the way in which they changed the scene drop with the curtain and the way they were
that's so clever.
That Benny Hill run, that was hilarious.
Yeah, that's genius, that scene transition. And again, sort of committing to the whole panto thing. And yeah, I think maybe they're my second favorite of the sort of sketchy characters in series 3 after Dean Tavalouris. So Anya, what did you think of this sketch?
I really enjoy this one because I think the characters in series 3 are a bit underused in terms of I don't know how to say it eloquently or intelligently, in terms of how good the characters actually are. I think they're a bit underappreciated and underused in terms of storytelling and development and things like that. So it was nicer to get to see a bit more of their development in this version of the universe, if you like. And like you said, it was brilliant to see Barry get to trick Joseph. That's just the best bit, to get to see him get his own back after the way he's treated in the series itself. So yeah, this one works really well for me, and the scene change has to be one of the cleverest bits I've seen on stage. So yeah, everything just works really well in this one.
Yeah. And it's probably Steve Pemberton getting his own back on Reece Shearsmith after.
Yeah, after that beating he took. Yeah, for sure.
You have to look up the bloopers for series 3. I'm not going to spoil it. It's brilliant.
Yeah, poor guy. So.
But yeah, I think that it is a really funny sketch. So we have the Chinnery bit next with the audience interaction. George, what did you think of this bit?
It was quite funny seeing the audience participant in question. What was her name again?
I can't remember.
It was Emmy or something.
Yes, that was it.
It was funny just seeing her, because as she was being brought up and as she got the stuff put onto her, you could see in her face that she knew what was coming.
Yeah.
That was very funny.
Yeah, that's the thing with any comedians who do like audience interaction bits. They always say you want to get someone who does not want to be on stage. If you want to get someone who wants to be on stage, they're going to try and be funny and they're going to ruin it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Anya, what did you think of this sketch?
Yeah, I think it's really like there's not a lot to say because it's fairly short in terms of the interaction, but it's brilliant. And my favorite bit of it is actually the audience participant, because you can just see that she's basically like shitting herself about it, as you would be if you'd seen the show. It's just
Which is
hilarious.
ironic
Like,
considering what happens to her.
yeah, exactly. It's good to see Chinnery get to have interaction with somebody else as well, because I always feel a little bit sorry for Mark because he seems to always be out there on his own a lot of the time. So it's good to have somebody else for him to bounce off, even if it's not Reese or Steve. So yeah, I enjoy this one.
Yeah, he's a character that we don't see him interacting with other regular characters. Obviously, there's Mr. Tinsel, the farmer from series
Yeah.
1. And Rishi Smith and Steve Pemberton do play a couple of other pet owners in series 2. But yeah, actually Ben Zamori, who was in some of our previous live streams, says it's often says that Chinnery is his favorite character, and every time I go, oh, poor Chinnery. But yeah, I do like the Chinnery sketches. This is probably my least favorite of the Chinnery sketches. I mean,
no animals die.
Yeah, I mean the like I've said about them before, the dark humor and including like that kind of gory dark humor, again, isn't usually the stuff that would make me laugh. But
Yeah.
it's such a simple setup and payoff, and then they play with the audience's expectations once the audience knows what's going to happen. It reminds me of the Armstrong and Miller show. They have a character who's like hosting a documentary about some kind of artifact, and then the artifact will be destroyed by the end of the sketch. And you like accidentally destroy the artifact, and it's that similar thing of they're gonna accidentally mess this up spectacularly, but you don't know how they're gonna do it until the end of the sketch. And you don't know what the target of destruction is going to be. But yeah, I think again, I don't dislike the sketch, but it's my least favorite of Chinnery's sketches, I think. And of course, it splits into, and it's Charlie and Stella.
That was funny. That was very funny.
Yeah, that was a big surprise when I first saw it. So, George, what did you think of the sketch?
It definitely caught. It was one of those things. I think anytime we watch a panto and we see a panto horse or a panto cow, it's one of those things we want to see happen. We want to see it split in half and the two people inside of it arguing with each other.
Yeah. And Anya, what did you think of the sketch?
Oh, it's brilliant. Like George was just saying, to actually get to see it come apart is amazing. And Charlie and Stella are definitely one of the best Reese and Steve couples throughout the show for me. So to get quite a prolonged like interaction between them is brilliant. And also, it's not funny, obviously, what happened to Julie, but to have it to undercut the comedic value with really quite a dark thing is a very impressive thing to do on stage, and then still have people laughing at the end of it when they walk off together. The dynamic that they have between each other is beautiful to get to see on stage, but to get it in a panto environment just makes it even that much better. So
well, him farting in her face probably helped as well.
Well, yeah.
I think it's a really really interesting. It's definitely the darkest moment of the panto.
It is. Yes.
There isn't.
We drowned our baby.
Yeah, it's definitely the darkest, but yeah, like you said, it works so well, and they are like I was saying, you know, they do these like kitchen sink drama characters so well, and you know, it's because it you know, originated from observation, and it's just like I feel like we all know a Charlie and Stella.
Absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, there's so
it's getting late.
Yeah, I'm thinking that as well. I will go to the next bit. But yeah, it is brilliant. So the Bernice is another of those characters where it's like they're one of my favorite characters, but they're a terrible person, and that's why they're my favorite. So George, what did you think of this sketch?
I did kind of feel like maybe these were some of the seeds into Robert's character from Psychoville maybe have come in.
Ooh, yeah. Well, originally, I think they said originally when they did this sketch in earlier shows, because of course with all these live show things, they do one of the last performances because that's their sort of most refined version based on audience feedback. And it
Yeah.
was supposed to be a little person rather than an elf, and they were like the audience didn't respond as well to that. So I think it's probably just because it's Mark Gatiss playing him with little stick arms. But
Yeah. It was also funny for the bit at the end when she picks up the elf and the dummy in question has a head on it. That was a really good kind of switcheroo, because obviously it wasn't actually Mark Gatiss's head on the dummy.
Does it have a head though? Because I thought that at first, but then I think
It
just
looks like it's got a
pulls the
head.
hat off. It does look like it. It's hard to see, but anyway, Anya, what did you think of this sketch?
Yeah, it's brilliant. To be honest, it kind of reminded me a little bit of Bernice's what's it called? The show that she does in the radio show, Hours of Agony. It kind of reminded me of that a little bit in terms of the insults that she'd throw to the person she's interviewing and then the reaction from the audience. So because it harped back to that for me, it was a really good one. It's sort of like a reuse of earlier material but make it relevant for the panto. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Bernice is brilliant because she's so horrible. You know, if she started being nice to people, we'd all hate her. So yeah, her wickedness definitely helps the hilarity of this scene.
Yeah, I like how they expand on her in the Christmas special, but still, she is she is such a mean character. George, do you have anything to say about this sketch?
Was this character in the show?
He was in the caves when they're going through the caves, and he's casually talking about a child who drowned there.
Yeah, I'm vaguely remember. What series was that?
Series 1.
I thought it was series 1. Yeah. It was quite funny, just his very monotone delivery, giving out the safety instructions and everything.
Yeah, it's again in general, he's not one of my favorite characters, but and it is overshadowed by the stuff in the show. But yeah, it's a good sketch and a good way of expanding his character, that he gets a job somewhere else and the same thing happens. Anyway, Anya, what did you think of this sketch?
I don't really have much more to add, to be honest. I mean, you've both sort of covered it because it's short and sweet. But yeah, Mark does a brilliant job, and like you say, it's a good way to sort of reuse the same material but make it new. It's just Mark's characterization really that makes it so funny, because we shouldn't all be laughing really at the fact that it's happened twice, but it's even more funny because it has. So yeah, it's just the way they use the dark humor is fantastic, and it's something.
It is,
yeah.
Okay, then we have Mickey and the Beanstalk.
Yeah, if just a request, if we could, maybe speed it up, just because I'm starting.
Yeah, sure. I'm aware of that. Don't worry, I'm going through this relatively quickly. So,
and I want to eat something. I want to eat something before I go to bed too.
Yeah, sure, not a problem. I'll go through this last bit as soon as possible, and we're quite near the end anyway. So
yeah, Mickey goes the Tubbs and Edward bit. Yes.
Yeah.
The best bit.
The Beanstalk, Mickey goes up. They when there's a deleted scene, the only deleted scenes are the one I talked about earlier, and one where the Beanstalk doesn't work. And Mark Gatiss goes, "Okay, boys and girls, I want you to imagine there's a Beanstalk there." And so yeah, what do you think of Mickey and Tubbs and Edward?
I did find the part where Edward is the giant, but it's like inexplicably he's giant and then he's normal size. I found that really funny. And also the part where they do the Rumpelstiltskin thing and they turn Edward into a flea, and his voice with that high-pitched flea distortion is unbelievably funny.
Yeah, I love how it's just the same delivery, but sped up.
But with high pitch, yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. I do love this bit, and it's interesting seeing them interact with an established character, because usually the Mark Gatiss role is like this unknown character.
One-off or in the case of the end of series 1, turns out to be their son.
Yeah, so it would be. I always wondered what it would be like if they go, "Are you local?" And he goes, "Yes, I am." I always wondered what would happen if that happened.
Yeah,
and they just have a perfectly normal interaction with him.
Well, it's because a few times they do actually interact and kill somebody who actually is local. They don't say that they are, but they are local.
Yeah. Anyway, so have I asked you both about this sketch?
You asked me, and you didn't ask Anya.
I haven't asked Anya. Anya, what do you think about this sketch?
It's probably the best one for me. I love the fact that they make you wait till the end of the show because, relatively speaking,
yes.
yeah, they're everybody's favourites. The costumes are one of the best bits of this for me. They're just incredible to get to see them in their different outfits. And the fact that Steve makes Reese break a little bit and giggle is one of my favourite bits of the show, that when the singing doesn't work, he just sticks his tongue out instead and then he finally gets a laugh. So it's one of my favourite bits when they break their characters. But in terms of like storytelling and plot evolution and stuff, it wraps everything up perfectly. So yeah, I would say this is one of the highlight sketches for me, not just because Edward's in it, but because everything works so beautifully to tie it into the end of the show.
Yeah, it is brilliant, and I think that there was they break less in this show than they did in the previous live show. During the Pauline bits in the previous live show, they're in hysterics.
Oh, that's hilarious to watch.
Yeah, but I suppose they're not on stage much for as much for the Pauline bit, so yeah, maybe that helps.
Yeah,
and but yeah, there are so many fantastic lines in this scene. A golden epistle. I hope he wasn't put out. Yeah, they're all brilliant. And then of course you get our grand finale. I don't think I'll be able to find it, but there's that bit when Ned comes across the stage, who is just there. He is, who is probably my least favorite out of all of those sketch kind of characters in series 3. And it's just such a tiny appearance here. That I don't think it really does much. I think he goes across the stage in the amount of time it takes you to remember who the character is.
Yeah, well, the dance break's fun, so
yeah. But so yeah, the music's fun. But apart from that, so George dropped out. So Anya, what did you think of the? Oh, he's coming back.
Sorry,
there you are.
My internet crapped out for a second.
Well, at least it wasn't for like half an hour, like it was.
Yeah.
It cut out at the end of my stream.
Oh no, how annoying.
Yeah. And it was just George and the others just being like, what do we do now? But anyway, George, what did you think of the finale?
Yeah, I thought it was a fun little finale. I liked Tubbs's epilogue. Whereas, just sort of describing what all the characters were going through now.
Yeah, again, sort of really leaning into the whole panto thing, and
that does happen in a panto, where like they'll say what happens to the various characters, and normally there's some jokes involved.
And do you get an appearance from Barbara? And
oh yes,
obviously
Barbara.
there's the combination of the transphobia, and it's like, oh, so she's the purest woman, kind-hearted woman in Royston Vasey. That's nice.
That
and she gets a boyfriend
really.
at the end. That's nice.
Kind of tracks really, because she does come off like she is most of the time in the show.
Yeah, she is like the most decent character. I think that's.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we've talked about it in previous streams, but yeah, sort of modern fans have kind of reclaimed her as kind of. I think also because a lot of the intended humor comes from just how uncomfortable people feel about her talking about her operation, and
not just the operation, but the fact that she leaves nothing to the imagination.
Yeah, but yeah, I think it's I think it's different. It's so yeah, she is kind of reclaimed. Although I do think they dropped the ball with her with the anniversary special, which I won't tell you what happens. But yeah, I think they dropped the ball with the anniversary special concerning her. But yeah, that is the end of the panto. So yeah, thank you very much, guys. Lovely to have you both on here. And George, do you have a video out tomorrow? Is it?
Not tomorrow, next weekend. That's
Next
the plan
weekend.
anyway. It's like there's a lot going into this one, so it's possible that it could get delayed, but hopefully it should be out next weekend, next Sunday to be precise.
Well, fingers crossed.
That's my Thunderbirds review.
Ah, yes. And Anya, I know you don't have a channel or anything, but you do have a fantastic Twitter account. I do recommend your Twitter account because your cosplay is amazing.
But thank you. Yeah, thank you. I do not put the effort into my content that you two do. I'm just here to shout about how much I like Pauline. So yeah, it's just a silly little account, but I like it. So
it's great to see your pilgrimage to Hadfield as well.
Oh
yesterday.
yeah, it was the best day. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. Anyway, thank you very much, guys. Thank you to everyone watching. And we will. I don't know when I'm going to do the series 2 of the Psychoville live streams, but yeah, they'll start at some point next year. Maybe around when the new series of Inside Number 9 is, but I'd have to see how things pan out. But yeah, thank you very much as always, guys. Thank you to George and Anya and everyone watching. And yeah, I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.